This pocket change is all about story time. Storytelling is as old as time. We've been sharing stories since before we could speak, with symbols and finger painting on cave walls. It's probably the earliest form of teaching, keeping our history, knowledge, and experiences alive. Stories connect us across time as well as space. The stories we tell shape how we see our world. Stories communicate facts, but maybe more importantly, they communicate and share emotions. And that's the crux of it when it comes to storytelling and change. Because nobody ever changed for a strategy. We don't do things differently for a vision statement. And we definitely don't make things better because a project plan said it would. If you really want people to change, you have to get them emotionally. If you think that's rubbish, that it's impossible to get someone to be emotional about the implementation of a new IT system, try implementing one. Humans are driven by emotions. Stories convey and create emotions. Use them to communicate and be a part of your change. We like to think we're logical, and occasionally we can be, but when things get tough, we get emotional. And change is tough. I'm not saying that everyone will start sobbing into their tea at a launch event, but people will respond emotionally when you start to change things. We can't help it. We are hardwired this way. Good storytellers can use that emotion. Combine it with facts, throw in some embellishments, and boom, you've suddenly got a whole room of people laughing, crying, and calling for a new IT system. All right, maybe not for an IT system, but you get the point. To change the narrative in your organization within your change the story. The organizational stories, the team stories, the individual stories. Instead of the story about how the organization takes ages to do anything differently, like that time we tried to change the way we processed orders back in 2010 and it failed miserably because people didn't like it and Jeff in accounting told them it wouldn't work, but no one listened to Jeff and they did it anyway. Stop telling that story. Start telling the story about how the events team spotted how they can make a process faster if they took out a bit of unnecessary bureaucracy and save the organisation time and money. How it was rolled out across the country and they all got a bonus and two of the team got promoted. You know, Sandra, the director of operations. Yeah, she was part of that team and look at her now. Neither of these stories are 100% true. Neither focus on the little detail. It doesn't matter. They set the scene for all that follows. They change the narrative of your change. Our stories are our culture. We change the stories, we change the culture. We change the culture to one that is supportive, open, tolerant of change. We make it much more likely that any changes and improvements will be successful. It takes time. It's not something you're going to do overnight. And I'm sorry, but a few finger paintings on a wall of meeting room one probably won't cut it either. You're going to have to put your big pants on and tell some stories of your own. Preferably stories with some adversaries that were overcome, some element of failure, but made up of mostly truth and triumph. Find other people who have these stories. Tell them, share them, amplify them. Because that's how you change your narrative, by creating a new one. Here are a handful of tips for good storytelling. Choose an appropriate occasion. Consider the interests of your audience and start to craft a story that they will recognise, a story that will feel real to them and they'll be able to see themselves in. Give it a good practice. A good story has a beginning, middle, and end, but the best stories build on suspense and include some humour. Don't go in and give it a good shot in a room full of people for the first time. Test yourself, build that confidence. Start strong. Capture their attention. Give a great example of change, of a fact, of a moment. Create climax for them. Ensure that your story is actually correct. Make sure the events are in the right order so it's easy for people to remember. Create believable characters. Jeff in accounts and Sandra in marketing are always relatable because people recognize these names, these roles, and these conversations. Engage people on that emotional level by sharing universal emotions that resonate with them, especially if it relates to something that they're going through right now, and especially if you can empathize with them. Take the point of the story and link it back to the issue on the table. How that story helps you find a solution. And my favourite one, which sometimes I fail with, is keep your story short. Keep the important bits in, but lose everything else. Like any good story, it doesn't have to be 100% true, but it does have to be mostly true and no actual lying, because you were not chased by a bear and I am not bailing you out of prison.